What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA, where we're smoking weed and we're talking mixed martial arts. This is episode number 130. I'm Jared here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from the fight capital of the world, beautiful Las Vegas. Today, we're going to be smoking and talking all about the results of the outstanding UFC 273 card. We're going to touch on some exciting boxing fights coming up, a little bit of the upcoming UFC. Before we get into the combat sports action, though, you know what time it is. Grab your weed, fire it up, and let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
We got a nice brand new one today, Paul. What did you bring us?
Yeah, we got a layer cake by Mojo.
Layer Cake by Mojo. Layer Cake is aptly named because there's a lot of different strains that make up this genetics here. But I gotta say right away, this is a nice kind of mix of an earthy sweet taste to it on this joint here. I'm liking it. That's real smooth. Layer Cake is made up of a cross of wedding cake, triangle kush, garlic, mushroom, and onions, or GMO, and skunk number 1. So there is just a whole lot there to those genetics. I mean, if you dig into skunk number 1, we've got Afghani, we've got Acapulco Gold, we've got Thai. You go down to the GMO, we've got Girl Scout cookies and Chem Dog, which brings us back to OG Kush and Durban Poison. The wedding cake, we've got more Girl Scout cookies crossed with cherry pie, which brings in even more Durban Poison in both of those strains, plus some Granddaddy Purple. Then in the Triangle Kush is basically a makeup of OG Kush, which is Hindu Kush, Lemon Thai, and Chem Dog. We've just got so many OG strains making up this very aptly named wedding cake, or layer cake, if you want to call it wedding cake. I have fucking wedding cake as my other strain. We got a little bit of right here. But this is real nice, man.
Yeah.
This is a hybrid, obviously, but this is an indica dominant hybrid. You got a pretty good deal on that for a dispensary, I gotta say.
Yeah. Sick ass.
Some decent looking buds. I haven't seen dispensary weed in a while. How was the dryness level of it?
It's not too bad.
Really? I want to check it out here. I meant to look at it earlier. Oh yeah, that's nice. It smells good. It's not too dry at all. It's always nice to see. Went into that here in Vegas. Oh my goodness. All right, dude. Let's keep puffing down on this delicious, perfectly legal cannabis. Hope whatever you are smoking on is good as well, folks, if you're smoking down. And let's dive into the UFC. We just came off a really exciting weekend of fights, actually. We had boxing, we had bare knuckle boxing, and we had the UFC card as well, which was a pay-per-view event capped by the 2 title fights, plus the really highly anticipated test of Chimaev in facing Burns. By debut, I think I just meant debut of actual strong competition.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start this show off, sir? I'll give you free reign. You want to talk the smaller promotions? You want to dive right into UFC?
Just dive right into it. Huh?
Sounds good to me, brother.
So,
UFC 273. The headliner was Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie, but it was a solid card, top to bottom, wouldn't you say? You want to start with some of these smaller fights on the card?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Alexei Olenek real quick. I mean,
just another one.
60th win. Not even fight. 60th
Ezekiel choke too.
Win. Yeah, and he gets the Ezekiel choke again. For those of you listening, maybe unfamiliar, he is a heavyweight. And he was fighting a replacement fighter, I do believe, in Jared Vanderea, who was highly outclassed. I mean, I'm sorry, no disrespect, but but he got worked. Ezekiel choke, sometimes called a scarf hold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this guy ever going to retire? I mean,
No.
he's 43. He's cleared 60 victories. He has over 40 submissions, I do
Yeah.
believe, doesn't he?
Something like that.
And a ridiculous number of those have been the aforementioned Ezekiel choke. I don't see why he retires because he seems to love what he's doing. Nobody's fooled into thinking he's going to actually get the title or anything that I'm aware of. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
It's just another one bites the dust for him, I guess.
You think?
He's undeniable. You know what I mean? Like, why would he retire? It's not like he's like taking a ton of damage or anything. You know? He's collecting checks, collecting necks. You know,
I like that, collecting checks and collecting necks. Yeah.
literally,
But kudos to him. I mean, it's a rare thing to see somebody get 60 fights, period. 60 victories. Nearly unheard of. Especially as a big dog.
He's fought the best of the best in the world too.
Right. I mean, even in some other combat sports like boxing, the fighters you see that have the big number of fights, they tend to be the smaller guys.
Yeah.
Because you just take more damage when you're bigger. These guys hit like fucking train trucks. Train trucks. I just made that word up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They hit like trains, trucks,
That
bowling
also could
balls.
be
Insert
trucks.
your euphemism here. But I like it. I like watching him.
Yeah.
As long as, you know, and you never know. It's the heavyweight division. You string together 3-4 wins, suddenly you're in the title picture.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
So who knows? But kudos to him hitting rare heights as a mixed martial artist. And now let's go to the opposite. We're talking about rare heights achieved by a mixed martial artist. And let's dive down to lows, Paul, achieved by a mixed martial artist named Mickey Gall. What the fuck happened here, bro?
Yeah, fuck
What happened to Mickey Gall? Like,
That
my
was
boy
rough.
texts me in the middle of the fight from Colorado, and he's like, Jared, I'm confused. I thought Mickey Gall was supposed to be the shit, and every time I see him, he's getting his ass fucking slept.
Slept.
What
Or
happened?
dominated. Yeah. That's what everyone's wondering.
The kid had talent, but do you
Yeah.
think it's just a case of the UFC being too much too soon,
Yeah.
where and it just kind of fucked up his career in a bit?
Mm-hmm. There was no like stepping off point for Mickey Gall. I don't feel like he's ever really evolved to the level that everyone thought he would.
No, he came in the very, very rare 1-0.
Yeah.
Sometimes that would happen on things like tough, like Brendan Schaub famously came
Yeah.
in, you know, and had all his fights in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a different time, and the Tough House is a different experience than the
Yeah.
Contender Series where Mickey Gall came from.
No, he was on that Dana White looking for a fight.
That's right. That's what I meant. Looking for a fight, even worse.
Yeah.
And they were looking for someone to fight CM Punk.
Yeah. And he called CM Punk out. of
And then they
course.
gave him Mike Jackson. Again, I respect the things of Mike Jackson. It takes big balls to be a journalist and go fight as well.
Yeah.
But dude, I mean, he's not. A victory over him is not anything for Mickey Gall to be flexing about, I should say. And then he fights CM Punk, same thing. Okay, Mike Jackson beat CM Punk.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't he?
Yeah, but it was after. But still, yeah.
Still, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
trying to throw shade at Jackson a little bit, maybe on his skill level, but look at Punk. He still be CM Punk, right? He
Yeah.
fights CM Punk, and then he fights Sage Northcutt, who is somewhat legitimate, but this is 2016. This was
Yeah.
when Sage shouldn't have, frankly, been in the UFC either.
Yeah.
So
Both of them were like completely green.
and then in the UFC, the way it tends to work, Paul, right? You string together like 3 wins, especially the last one coming against kind of a name at the time,
Yeah.
which with Sage, the legitimacy of that name being debatable, it was still a name, especially at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, Mickey Gall's got all this hype, but he's really fought a journalist, a fake wrestler, and a really raw kid.
Yeah. Dude's on the same level as him.
And then he's been to the Wolves ever since, and he's getting chewed up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, even Diego Sanchez got him. I mean,
Diego whooped his ass.
yeah. So, you know, you had the UFC hyping him up as like, because you see he's only 4-0, but he's here, and the UFC is like, he must be the shit. So he kind of gets this false narrative. It was too much too soon. The guy should have stuck to other things.
100%.
I mean, other things. I mean, I don't mean not fighting. I mean, other leagues. Like, dude,
Yeah.
get 5 or
Build
6
yourself
wins
up.
before you hit the fucking
And-
big leagues, dog.
And now he's 30, and you're looking at it like, does he have enough time to still do that? I don't know.
And his name, his rep is a little tarnished.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
where it would have been the opposite. He wouldn't have got that initial big push, but maybe he would have earned it
yeah.
with his fighting skills and not his fortuitous situation and seizing the moment and calling out CM Punk like he did.
Yeah.
You know.
True.
And it's no disrespect meant to Mickey Gall, but facts are facts. I mean, look what's
Yeah.
happening here.
Yeah, it's undeniable at this point. So,
I mean, hell, look at Sage Northcutt. We still haven't heard from him since his entire face was broken off
yeah.
at his one debut back in 2019. I
Yeah.
mean, and you could say the same thing for him. Too much, too soon. But even he had more experience coming into the UFC than Gall did, and he fought a lot more real fighters than Gall did in the very beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it was a rough one. He gets what, first round knockout,
His face planted him.
face planted at like the 3-minute mark or something. It wasn't very good. I felt bad for the dude.
Yep. And moving on up the card, we had Aspen Ladd taking on Raquel Pennington. A real good fight, in my opinion. It was just two ladies standing their ground and just going after it.
Raquel gets the victory, which I was happy to see. She's from my
Yeah.
hometown, Colorado
On
Springs.
9 days' notice as well.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Pretty good for her. I mean, she beats a number 4 in the division. That's just another step up the ladder, you know?
I like seeing Raquel hanging out in the top part of this division. And she's another one who could very easily find herself in title contention again with another win or two. Despite, having had some ups and downs, she is a really solid fighter who's continued to improve later in her career.
Yep.
That joint is almost gone, sir. A fight that got a lot of pre-hype interest or pre-fight interest was the Ian Gary Darren Weeks bout at welterweight.
Yeah.
Both of those guys, young prospects. I believe Gary was 7-0, Weeks 5-0 or 5-1 maybe.
Yeah.
But Gary really kind of had more of the momentum, at least the noise behind his name, and he did get the win. In a pretty entertaining bout. It was a decision victory. He outstruck Weeks 74-40. Weeks did get a takedown in there. A few things I was impressed by watching this was the quality of Gary's striking, specifically, and then I say specifically punching and kicking. Sounds a little stupid, but I mean like his technicality. Like he was firing off jabs and straight right hands, like 1-2s, like pistons, man.
Yeah.
Like elbow tucked, fired right straight out, and most of the time bringing it, right back to him, just really fast.
Yeah.
I felt kind of like he underutilized some of his weapons, though. What did you think?
Yeah, I felt the same way. I felt that, especially in the first round, that there was a lot of openings that he just were there, that he was just sticking to the game plan and seeing what was open like long term, and so he kind of just sat back in that first round and didn't necessarily put his foot on the gas. I do think as the fight went on, his rhythm, once he caught his rhythm, he was a little bit more active. But I did think he just fought a bit passive early in the fight.
He's got these kicks, combos, like he was, his 1-2-3 combos were getting a little bit repetitive where Weeks knew it was coming or he knew the 2 was coming.
Mm-hmm.
He did a lot of 1-2s with that big overhand right that Weeks was clearly blocking and knew was coming, but then he would throw like a question mark kick behind it, a high kick behind it that just he can fire those from the hip where they're really hard to see and they happen really fast, and he doesn't need to pivot much to get it up in the air.
Well, we're talking about a guy who's 6'3" and 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Like that matters. You know what I mean? That length, whether it be in his kicks, but also from his jabs and his punches, his ability to stay at that distance is going to be a difference in every single fight he's in.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with that, and I think once he starts mixing up his combinations a little bit more, like for instance, we were going back and forth on it. Like I thought he had openings for 114s all day long, which is a double jab followed by a right uppercut, because especially the way Weeks was constantly expecting that the big way up overhand right is going to lead you right up the middle. But these are things that come with experience, and it's easy to sit here on the sidelines and watch that, obviously. But a measured performance against a solid opponent, and I see a lot of potential there.
Yeah, a lot.
And his I'm a little repetitive. Just his striking really impressed me. I wish he would have let it go.
Yeah.
But what he did fire off he's got some power there. Darren Weeks has a chin, bro.
Yeah, sure.
An absolute chin on him, and I think his future is bright in the division too. I mean, this was a couple young contenders meeting, who could very well meet again later on as ranked fighters. I feel.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then we kicked off the pay-per-view with a real interesting matchup between Vince Pichel and Mark Madsen, and it was exactly that. It was just like a dog fight, but it was a controlled dog fight by Madsen. Like he
Madsen's
entertained it for a little
wrestler.
bit,
Yeah.
but then as soon as it got out of hand, he was like, all right, you're going down.
Pichel outstruck him about 68-39. However, the takedowns were what made a difference here. He was fighting a guy who's an Olympic wrestler. I think he said 5-time world champion or some shit.
Something like that.
He was definitely bragging himself up in the post-fight interview, but good for him. But Pichel's a tough guy, and I think that we can't talk about this fight, win or lose for Vince, without talking about, as you termed it, his legendary mustache.
Legendary mustache.
He
looked like he was like Don Fry's son.
Absolutely. That is a powerful mustache. That is a mustache not many men can wear. There's sometimes a man wears a mustache and you're like, bro, no. Some people cannot pull that off. Especially that one.
That one especially.
Like,
that one is
you
like,
gotta be a fucking man's man.
Yeah, that one's like, okay.
To wear that.
You gotta you gotta own at least an acre of land to have that mustache.
Dude, Vince from Hell Pichel has been a fighter I've enjoyed watching since he was on The Ultimate Fighter back in the day. I always thought his nickname was cool, and he was a bit of a hothead on the show. And he's solid, he's good.
Yeah, it was a good fight.
It was a good fight, and he definitely looks like Mark Madsen is one to watch though in this division.
Yeah,
that wrestling's pretty fucking strong, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, then moving on up, we have another real good fight. Was the Mackenzie Dern Tisha Torres fight. We really saw the evolution, I think, in Mackenzie Dern's game within this fight.
Yeah, I agree. She started off wild and crazy, and I was like, oh man, she hasn't improved at all. Yeah. But then about a minute or two into the fight, she calmed down, and then her striking looked much more improved.
It's not even that, like, I just mean her overall movement and comfortability on her feet too. Like, just like the way she was, so light on that front foot, and like she was popping the jab out and throwing.
She was.
It was
she
just
had a nice right hand.
Yeah, it was just like so different from any other striking we've seen with her. I think the time she spent with Jason Perillo has obviously completely changed her whole game, and yeah, I thought it was a great fight.
Yeah, Tisha Torres, I mean, it was a close fight. She survived some crazy submission attempts, as to be expected. I mean, it was the grappling that ultimately made the difference in the fight and won it, even though she didn't get the submission. I mean, Tisha did outstrike her 76-50, but we had 3 submission attempts from Dern, like officially counted on the scorecards as submission attempts, and countless others. I mean, she's a chain submission artist.
That second round,
she goes boom, 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 boom.
That second round was scary. The way she just walked her down and then just jumped on her. She literally was like gonna pull guard, but then like Tisha wasn't gonna go down with her, so she just climbed her body and then almost hit her
Yeah, it
with a
was
guillotine. I
bizarre.
was
She
like,
climbed the
"What
front
is
of her. Like
going
you usually see
on?"
that she goes around the back,
Yeah.
and not this time. No, she was
Nah,
like, "Fuck
she's
you,
like,
I'm
"Nope, I'm
clawing
going
you like
with
a
you."
little monkey,
Yeah,
a little 5
and
foot
then
one ass."
dude, I thought she broke her arm too.
Yeah, I thought it was over
I thought,
when she got her on the ground and they were rolling, and she had that Kimura. She had
Yep.
this a wicked,
Yeah.
I don't
It
know how to
looked,
describe it. It was a Kimura, but the way she was attached to Tisha while she was standing
yeah,
up, and then they fell to the ground and rolled, and it was like, oh my god, her arm's gonna snap.
yep.
And
I was just
instead,
waiting
Torres
for
gets
it
out
to
of it.
snap. Waiting for it to snap. I was just like, "Oh, here we go."
I think Tisha
Here it
Torres should get a
comes.
lot of credit in defeat here for she's never been finished in a professional mixed martial arts fight, and man, did she show some toughness not getting finished in this fight.
Dude, it was nuts.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
And Dern made a statement here by going out and fighting. Even though Dern came into this fight ranked 5th and Tisha was 7th, I still feel like most people, in their own opinions, would rank Tisha Torres above Mackenzie Dern. Okay, well, prior to the fight.
I guess so.
I mean, if you just look at skill level and experience, and whatever, I would say that you're gonna have your hands full, Mackenzie. Like I kind of expected Tisha to win here, and instead Dern came out and really did well and makes a statement at 115 that she can hang with these top tier fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that her evolution as a fighter has been just so like instrumental, and like her coming up as well. Like she was one of the people that we always said to that couldn't be rushed. Like she had to have those fights and those. She has a couple, only 2 losses in the UFC, so she's had a couple stumbles, but I feel like she's really
better,
learned
yeah.
and has gotten better from those fights. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And she was matched
It's a
up
big win.
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah,
In contrast to like what we were describing earlier with like Sage Northcutt and Mickey Gall, who
yeah.
rushed into the spotlight because the UFC wanted stars, you know, and instead Dern is going the proper route and really putting in the work to improve as
Yeah.
well. Like clearly, she could she doesn't have to do the improvements that she's done. Her jiu-jitsu is so good. She could probably make her way right up to a title shot if she just really focused on going in and getting these takedowns. But instead, she chooses to strike and to learn
test
and,
it,
and to
yeah.
get more well-rounded. Because the only way you're really going to grow is if you can only do so much in the fucking gym.
Yeah.
Like you have to put it into implementation and be willing to take those risks to actually grow in the department, I feel. And
Yeah.
she's gone out and done it, man. Kudos to Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, you're right. She like everywhere that you feel like in those losses where she was like exposed, I feel like she's starting to close all the exposed areas.
Indeed.
Well,
Oh, I'm going to hit this bowl while you're...
next we'll talk about the fight of the night. Was going in, had so much anticipation, and I feel like it more than delivered. I'm talking about the Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns fight, which was just a banger of all bangers.
Yeah, that was a tremendous fight, without a doubt. It goes to a decision win for Chimaev, and it was a very close fight.
Very close.
We'll get into the next fight, the co-main after this. But I feel if there was any split decision on the card, it shouldn't have been the co-main. It should have been this fight.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised if they said Burns had won. I was kind of frankly expecting a Burns split decision, but I don't feel like a robbery occurred here.
I truly wish this fight was 5 rounds.
Yeah. The same guy that was texting me what happened to Mickey Gall was like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here. This needs to be 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. I think a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't denying that Chimaev was good. It's just we haven't seen him tested. It was just fact. We talked about it last week. I haven't seen him. I picked Burns because you have to go with the known factor here. But I think what it did show is that, all due respect to Khamzat Chimaev, he is not some superhuman wrecking ball. He's extremely good, but he's not insane. Like this isn't.
Yeah.
You know, if he had gone in and done the Gilbert Burns like he's done to his last 3 fights, you'd been like, what the fuck?
It would have
This is
set the world on fire.
Yeah, this is the craziest MMA fighter we've ever
Yeah.
seen. Like clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly this dude is.
Well,
And I'm
yeah,
not saying
no.
like he's world class. I mean,
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns is rightfully the number 2
Oh,
fighter
yeah.
in the division. I'm just saying he's a human being.
Yeah.
And he's very good.
So
Can he
you're
beat?
admitting he's human being.
Yeah, he's a human being. No, you know, with his
No,
fight,
I
he's
get what
not
you're
he's
saying.
not
I'm
a
just giving you
superhuman fighter.
No,
is
and
what I'm saying.
that's part of the problem as well with any kind of like these coming. Something we talked about last night during the pay per view as well is I think it's funny how every single week it's like they're putting all these pressure on these guys that like this is the next one, this is the next one, this is the next one. You know, it's like a couple weeks ago it's Patty Pimlet. This week it's Ian Gary and Kamzat and like all these like, oh, this is our next big guy. Everybody watch out. And then you put all these like crazy expectations. Obviously Kamzat was he met the expectations.
Mhm.
But I just mean in general. I just feel like every week it's like they keep
Well,
putting all
Gary's
these,
a
like,
good example of
crazy-
that. They
these-
were intersplicing footage of fucking Conor McGregor in his
Yeah.
pre-fight shit,
Yeah.
just because he's Irish.
Yeah. But
Like-
they've done this with Kamzat and Khabib though, the same thing.
No, you're right. They're both.
You know what I mean?
It's
But
thirsty much UFC.
yeah, exactly.
Fuck.
Exactly. But man, talk about
Thirsty bitches.
meeting expectations though.
Yeah,
This
he
fool
did
is
that.
something else.
And if we
He's
look at the
something
final
else.
stats here, we had 119 to 108 on the striking. We had very close rounds. We had takedowns from Chimaev, but not as many as people would initially think.
Yeah.
I mean, you break it down round by round. We had Burns landing, 18 in the first, Chimaev's 27. Then in the second, you had Burns landing 56 to Chimaev's 37. And then the fourth round was about even, 44 and 45.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of back and forth. Chimaev's got a good chin on him. He took some big
He took some big
punches,
shots.
man. His
Some
face
big
was busted
shots.
up afterwards. Like he looked
Yeah.
like he'd been in a fight, and he proved his mettle. And I do give give him credit for giving Burns credit.
Yeah.
I like that after a fight. You don't have to be friends, but you can at least recognize somebody's fucking toughness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
And he did that. He was like, "You're way tougher than I thought." You know?
Of course.
And now they're talking about Chimaev, versus Covington or Usman. And I don't think he is favored to win either one of those bouts realistically, especially when you look what Kamaru Usman did to Gilbert Burns specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you look at the Usman Burns fight, then you look at the 2 Usman Covington fights, and you have some idea. I mean, it's MMA math, so it's not accurate. You have kind of some idea of all of these 3 individuals' skill levels. So I still don't know if Covington's interested in taking that fight, not because he's scared. I just really don't see much of an
I don't know what
upside
it does
him
for
here.
him. Yeah.
So he beats Chimaev, okay.
Unless they like promise him some kind of third fight with Usman if he beats Chimaev.
Maybe they give him Adesanya. Maybe an out of division title shot.
Well, I
crazy
just
like
mean if
that.
he ends up staying at 170. If he stays at 170, the only way I see him fighting Hamza is if they promise him a third fight with Usman if he beats him.
Is the market, the fan base ready for the third fight between those 2 yet?
That's part of the problem too.
I
though.
mean, is
Yeah.
Usman want that yet? There's nobody else. I mean, as much as
nobody's clamoring for it. I'll tell you that.
and dude, those were great fights. And Covington, I mean, those could have swung in his favor too. They were very close, especially the second one. The first one was too. They're probably the closest fights to Usman's career. But I'm not. Dude, we need fresh faces.
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. That's kind of the part of the problem the UFC always has. Is it's kind of why I'm glad we'll talk about it more in the co-main event, but the co-main event went how it went, you know. But so yeah, this fight at the end of the day, I think was a hell of a show for Kamzat, and yeah, I think it just moves him along.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts Burns at all because I mean, you could rematch and Burns could win that fight. I mean, that was a razor thin. I'm still surprised by the scoring here
Yeah,
being just unanimous. I really,
I thought
I thought Burns won the second and third, if I'm remembering correctly. But like I said, I'm not mad. I don't think it was a
Yeah.
robbery.
I don't think it was a robbery, but I don't think it was like definitely not unanimous. But yeah, let's move on to the co-main event. In the co-main event, we had Aljamain Sterling take on Piotr Jan in somewhat of a technical fight, I would say, more than anything. It was an obvious game plan that Aljamain Sterling came in with, and it was exactly what he needed to win the fight in the end.
Yeah, Sterling gets the decision victory here, and he really did show a whole different fight than the first bout, which he infamously won due to disqualification.
Yeah.
I was disappointed that he wasn't able to do too much in the second and third rounds when he dominated Jan on the ground. I mean, that's his thing, is the backpack. He gets inside, he takes you down, and then he slips around on your back if he can when you're trying to get up. And Jan kept making that mistake of getting up a little too fast, and Aljamain gets his back, but then he attempts a lot, but doesn't do much with it, but holds an extremely dominant position for the remainder of both those rounds.
Yeah.
I
That's
did have
crazy that he
Jan.
only had 2 takedowns of 22.
Yeah,
It seemed like he had more, but
that is an amazing stat. I personally had Sterling winning rounds 1, 2, 3 and losing rounds 4, 5.
yep, I did too.
Dana was throwing shade on this. It was a split decision. I struggle to see the split decision here. I thought it was pretty clear cut. I mean, did I think it was a fun fight? No. Did I really enjoy watching it? No. I mean, it wasn't much to enjoy in that fight, in my opinion.
I thought he was going to choke him out. That was the best part of the fight for me.
He had ample opportunities to attempt it, and he did try it a lot. Jan fought very well off his back.
Yeah.
Holding on to Sterling's wrists and managing to survive.
There was a couple times where I thought Aljo was about to choke him out.
Same here. I was disappointed that didn't happen from such a dominant position. However, it was what it was. It was vindication for Aljamain Sterling. I don't see any fucking split decision here. I don't see any controversy.
Yeah, I thought Aljo clearly won too.
I think Aljamain deserves to be out talking that shit like he is today.
Mm-hmm.
He ate a lot of crow over the past 11 months. And had he lost here, he would have been in a terrible position because it would have invalidated in most people's minds his reign as champion, and in a lot of the fandom's minds, he would have been like the fakest champ in the UFC, kind of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was a lot at risk for Aljamain Sterling here, reputation-wise, and he rose to the occasion and did it.
And now this sets up a meeting between him and TJ Dillashaw, which everybody's ready for.
Dude, I think that's an important fight. If you're a fight fan like I am and you try to believe somewhat in lineal titles, then TJ Dillashaw is the man that Sterling needs to fight to put all that shit to rest.
Yeah.
And he will beat the lineal champion, the former champion, and then the interim champion, both being the same guy in Piotr Jan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that fight goes. That'll be an interesting one to examine.
It's a very
if it
interesting
gets made.
one, I think.
Dillashaw is a bit of an enigma with his time off, his injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling's always an enigma with the way he fights. I mean, he's very unorthodox with his striking. And there's still this lingering cloud over Dillashaw is how much of his gas tank and abilities were EPO generated.
Called him TJ Pillishaw.
I mean, obviously he's only been caught the one time, but yeah, there's always that question, which is what happens when you get caught, especially some shit like EPO, which so many people have managed to fucking hide.
Yeah.
And he was accused of using prior by former gym mates,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in like Cody Garbrandt.
Uh-huh.
You know, and you got to take that with a grain of salt because there was a lot of animosity there.
Yeah.
But still, who fucking knows? But that is the fight to make, in
Absolutely.
my opinion.
Yeah.
And they should get on it the way that division is held up.
Yeah.
You should announce that for 3 months from now, please.
It's kind of a weird spot too with your yawn because you have the weird cloud of that whole disqualification in the first fight. You lose the second fight, so where does this really put you in the division? I don't really know. Like, do you have to just win a couple and you get it back, or is it like one of those things where they're like, you're kind of 0-2 against Aljamain Sterling now, whether you want to call that first one what it was. Like, the idea of the third booking is that really that, that exciting for anybody? I don't know.
Right. And a lot of the casual fan base will tend to forget about the first fight being a disqualification because it lends more credence to the fact that, well, maybe Sterling would have won that fight. I mean, he won the next one.
Yeah.
You know, so you're right. I don't think there's a lot of clamoring for that yet. Jan's got some work to do. And I heard someone in the broadcast team or repeated by the broadcast team that said something to the effect of Jan fought angry and Sterling fought smart.
Yeah.
And I thought that summed it up pretty well.
That's true.
What do you think about the last fight on the card? It went kind of the way we both expected. We had the featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski, defending against the Korean zombie, Chan Sung Jung.
Man.
And it ended by a 4th round TKO in what was, frankly, a very lopsided beatdown.
Dude, fucking Volk looked great. Just great.
I mean, Volk outstruck him by nearly 100 punches. It was
He was landing
138
everything.
to 48, plus 4 takedowns mixed in there as well. And, you know, finally Herb Dean stepped in and did the right thing in the 4th round.
Yeah, dude.
I was kind of hoping that the Zombies corner would stop it after the 3rd, and I think fucking Herb Dean was as well. Yeah. And as soon as he saw, because you know the Zombie didn't even go down.
No.
When he waved it off, he just took 3 or 4 blows and then was backing up, and Herb Dean was like, "That's enough, man.
That's enough."
Yeah.
I thought they should have stopped it in between rounds, but yeah, it was. Yeah. What a performance by Volkanovski. I mean, literally just his constant like change up of all his different strikes he was throwing too. Like, it was just a masterclass.
And it's time now to really take a look at Alexander Volkanovski in a new light, I think, because this marks his 21st victory in a row.
Yep.
The man hasn't lost a fight in over 9 years, closing in on 10 years now.
Yep.
And he holds victories over some very significant players in the featherweight division already. I mean, he's living up to the nickname The Great, is he not?
Yeah, for real. It's true.
I mean, we talk a lot about Usman and his run. Mm-hmm. We talk about, you know, John Jones and his run. Well, this guy's going to have to start to be mentioned with those fighters as well. It's undeniable.
Yeah. His name is up in there now.
And then as he gets more title defenses to his name, if it continues down this path, he's going to become one of the all-times.
Yeah.
In what has turned into a shocking run for the featherweight division. I mean, think about it. It comes into the UFC with Jose Aldo coming over as the WEC champ. Already a storied champion. Okay? Then he goes on his run, And then who knocks him off the perch? Conor McGregor. Now, I know Volkanovski wants to throw shade at Conor and whatever. I think that's just fighter on fighter. But there's no denying Conor was an say what you want about featherweight or welterweight and lightweight. He's an all-time at featherweight. He beats Jose. He goes up. He does his thing at lightweight. So we've got him. And then we've got Max Holloway coming in. Clearly another all-time great fighter. Only now to be superseded by fucking Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Like, these are more than
And
just
what's
your
crazy
average champs.
is Volkanovski's beat a lot of the same people that have been like seen as like some of the greatest featherweights of all time too. He's beat the Chad Mendezes. He's beat Aldo. He's beat Holloway. Like he's literally beat some of the best guys we've seen in the division.
Yeah.
And he also has the longevity of the 21 fucking fights in a row and almost 10 years undefeated. Like it's crazy.
This is an amazing run of top-tier champion athletes in the featherweight division of
Yeah.
the UFC. It's
100%.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, just
100%.
one right after the other, and they keep getting fucking better.
Yeah.
I mean, dear God. Because I think the Volkanovski of today, if he fought, say, the Jose Aldo of his first fight in the UFC, would smoke him even worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if Conor McGregor were to drop back down to featherweight, if he can handle that smoke anymore either. Who
I
knows?
don't either. Yeah. It would be a tough fight for Conor, I think.
Mm-hmm. These guys are amazing, and Volkanovski is now asserting himself as an amazing talent.
Yeah.
What is next at featherweight? I mean, he did mention Holloway, and you got to give him credit for that because his detractors will point to, I think Holloway won that fight. Well, I don't think that Volkanovski's running from it. He mentioned it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not too keen on seeing it, frankly, but it was scheduled before.
Yeah.
Is there another contender in this mix? I mean, we've got
I guess Arnold Allen
we've got Arnold
or
Allen, but you can
Josh
kind of
Emmett. Those are the only two. Those are only two that are on win streaks. And I feel like they probably should fight each other before they fought for a title.
each other or one of them fight Holloway.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them fight Ortega.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the featherweight division is just turning out to be just a gold mine of talent over these years since its inception. In coming in with already, having Aldo in place. This is an amazing thing to watch. I really enjoyed that card overall. It was spectacular. We throw shade on the UFC, or I do, with their price tags and some of their lower cards. But this was a real winner.
Yeah, this one was good.
Really electric crowd in there too. Once again, highlighting just the massive difference between fucking Apex.
Oh yeah.
And these live events with these big crowds, man.
Yeah, most definitely.
I think that wraps the UFC 273. Great night of fights. Let's shift over to some boxing real quick. We've got an exciting match this week with Earl Spence.
Earl Spence taking on Ugas. This should be a very, very intense matchup. You got Ugas coming off the win against Pacquiao, the one that was supposed to be Spence's fight, that he stepped in and, kind of inserted him into the situation. And now it's...
Yeah, he stepped up. He beat Pacquiao.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this will unify 3 of the titles.
Yep.
And it'll just leave Terrence Crawford's WBO, I do believe, out of the mix, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's not doing anything but suing Top Rank at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a very interesting fight. Now, I know for certain pre-accident Spence, I would think this wouldn't even be close. Yeah. I still feel like there's a little bit of a question on Earl Spence and how he performs post-accident. And I think this will be a solid test for him, although I do ultimately expect him to get the victory here.
Yeah. I got Spence by knockout.
Spence by knockout, huh? Uh-huh. I'm picking Spence by unanimous decision.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I really hope that Terrence Crawford can sign with somebody and we can get this, that would be a massive fight. Spence Crawford to unify all 4 titles would be spectacular.
Yeah.
It'd be a tremendous, tremendous fight for like the fall. They could still do it this year. I'm just so shocked he hasn't signed with anybody. I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, Jesus Christ, we did a piece on him possibly signing with Mayweather Promotions based on rumors like weeks ago.
Yeah.
Weeks ago. And all he's done is come out with this lawsuit, which is just, come on, dude. Ugh. So, we had Ryan Garcia get a victory over this past weekend, which possibly sets him up for Tank Davis. Is one of the names getting bandied about, which would be interesting.
Well, I guess the winner of the Davis and Rolly.
Yeah. Of course, that banks on Davis winning here, but he's already getting mentioned.
Yeah, he's probably gonna knock up a lot.
Probably, but it's not a given, but probably. Yeah. Although there seems to be some friction brewing between him and Mayweather Promotions now.
Yeah.
And I believe he's coming near the end of his deal with them. So I don't know that.
It hold things up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care who he signs with it, but as we all know from boxing, these types of things, when it comes to the end of the deal with the promoter, can really fuck shit up as far as getting the next fights done.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I'd hate to see that happen both in the Crawford fight and then with this as well. If he's victorious, and well, we'll just have to see what happens. But we've got a string of boxing coming up over these next few weeks. We're not that far off from Dylan White versus Tyson Fury.
That should be very interesting.
There's a little bit of rumor, though. Didn't you hear something about Andy Ruiz?
Yeah, supposedly Andy Ruiz is flying out there as a backup just in case. Because White is supposedly having trouble with something.
Having trouble with physical ailments or mental ailments? Or
didn't
butthurt ailments?
You didn't really say. But...
Dude, the guy's been butthurt this whole time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to describe it. I'm sorry you're not Tyson Fury. I'm sorry he got that big hunk of change, but he did.
Yeah.
You're still getting like $8 million, and
Still
plus I'm pretty certain there's a back end.
Yeah.
On there as well, and the majority of these people are going to be tuning in to see the Gypsy King. Just doesn't mean you suck.
Yeah.
It's just is what it is. It's like when people fight Conor.
Yeah.
They're kind of tuning in to see Conor a lot of the time, not his opponent. It just is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
You take advantage of these situations, and hopefully you pull a Nate Diaz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you fucking win, and then you
win
got
and
all that fucking hype on you.
It's all on you after that.
I mean, Nate Diaz was a well-known commodity in the combat sports world, but when he beat Conor, he became a fucking superstar because he got all that Conor fucking air.
Yep.
Same. That's the way Dylan White should be looking at this, in my opinion. But instead, he skips the fucking press conference, turns it into the Tyson Fury show. You can't give Tyson Fury an entire press conference by himself.
Oh yeah,
because he'll do it.
You're asking, yeah.
He'll fucking take all the shine,
He'll
baby.
love it, yeah.
And now these type of rumors, I don't get it, man. Unless he's got an actual physical injury, it just seems some like nonsense, and I don't know why fucking Eddie Hearn tolerates it.
Yeah.
I mean, he made excuses for the press conference, and I get it. That's your guy. You got to back him up. But I don't know. I think Eddie should tell his man to show up, and build your name off of Fury.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't have taken a fight if he doesn't think he can win.
Yeah.
So, true. What the fuck?
It's true.
So I really hope that doesn't fall through. Although it does look like, the kind of the pair to that fight is, of course, the Joshua Usyk fight, which is back on now with a date of, they're looking at July 23rd.
Yeah.
Usyk has left the Ukraine in his training. Joshua's back on his training. And if both of those things happen, then we still have this possibility of a unification, because it seemed to be the thing that was pushing Fury to call this his last retirement fight against White, was the fact that there was an undetermined
amount of time for everything.
Right, with Usyk and the future of the remainder of the belts. And who wants to fucking wait out a war? I mean, to hopefully get a fight.
Yeah.
So good news all around on the boxing front, I'd say. And let's finish out the show here, Paul. There is a UFC card next week. There's not a lot to talk about, but what is the main event there?
Main event, we got Vicente Luque taking on Bilal Muhammad.
All right,
Real
this is a
big
welterweight, right?
welterweight matchup.
This is a rematch, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Who won the first one? Luque did, didn't
won
he?
by knockout.
By knockout, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Muhammad don't like that.
I don't think so.
Bilal Muhammad's real tough, but
He took a big leap in competition, I feel like, lately as well.
Yeah, he has. He's looking to assert himself in the division.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can get back this victory here, he'll go a long ways towards doing that. I mean, there's a little bit of talk about this being a title eliminator, right?
Yeah. Well, definitely for Luque, because Luque is on this would be his 8th in a row he's won or something like that.
Yeah, he's getting in that Leon Edwards territory.
Yeah.
And Muhammad, like you just mentioned, he's starting to really go up in competition and assert himself in the division as somebody to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, hell, he was calling for the Chimaev fight.
Yeah.
Him and Neil Magny were the only two guys that were really like, I want that smoke.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I think he meant it, and I think he's very talented, and I actually like him to win this fight next week. Not only am I going to be rooting for him as a fan, but I if I was a betting man, I would play some. I don't know the odds, but I would bet on Muhammad in this fight.
Yeah,
I like it.
Taking Vicente Luque.
Well, do you think that they'll actually get a title shot?
Luque, I think, has a better chance of getting a title shot than Muhammad does at this point.
Usman is scheduled to fight Leon Edwards finally, right?
Yeah, in July.
Here at International Fight Week, correct?
Yeah.
Which we will be at firsthand.
Yeah, sure.
But if that goes through, that would be good. And maybe Luque can get the winner of that. Or perhaps slide into a backup spot. Either one of them with a victory here, I feel could possibly be a backup fighter for that.
Well, yeah, he was already a backup fighter for when Colby and Usman threw down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're correct.
So,
well, that should be a good fight on an otherwise somewhat lackluster card. I'm actually much more interested in the boxing this upcoming weekend. So we'll have that to talk about and more next week. And plus, we're going to be joined next week by Blake Perry, who is making his debut in Bellator at their big Hawaii card here at the end of this month, correct?
mm-hmm.
And we're looking forward to hearing from him. So that's the show for this week, everybody.
Yep.
You can find out all the information on our spot, our show in one handy location.
SWATMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button, support the podcast, and then head over to Instagram and follow us at SWATMA Podcast.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Peace.